resources. They need individuals that really understand the needs they have in their own individual learning programs. And the team that's presenting today is going to try to provide some resources and strategies so that you can accomplish that with all the students you're trying to connect with. But again, I just want to thank all of you because what you're doing for our county is a huge difference in reaching our goals of really transforming lives for all students through education. So I hope you have a wonderful workshop today. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for your commitment. I hope all of you are safe with your families and your own children if you have them. But just have a wonderful workshop this morning. So thank you for allowing me to just give a short welcome. Thank you, Angelica.
Well, we want to thank you, Superintendent Alejandre, for supporting our work and supporting English learners in our county, and also supporting all of our districts as well. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Very welcome. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to pass it over to Sonal. She will go over the webinar norms. And
you can keep your screen on. You can keep the screen on if you like. Yeah, thank you. And so I just wanted to start by thanking Ted again for that welcome. I really appreciate you being here. I know we all do. And I also wanted to let you all know that this webinar is actually being recorded right now. So let me just, she's sharing her screen again, just give me a second. All right, I'm just going to go over some webinar norms. So as with all webinars and web conferencing, it tends to go a lot more smoothly if we're all on mute. So if you could just ensure that you're muted, we'd really appreciate it. In order to know that you're muted, you should see a microphone that is red on your end. So if you are not muted and you're not sure, don't worry, I'm also going in to mute you if you are not muted. And also, we have a lot of voices here. We've got a lot of people here today, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you do have any questions throughout today's webinar, we invite you to use the chat feature. Just go ahead and put in your name, put in your district and your question. Feel free to respond to some of those questions to the best of your knowledge as well. We're all here as learners today, and we can all learn so many things from each other. And as with every meeting, we'd appreciate online etiquette, just as you would do for your face-to-face meetings. Again, the webinar link is bit.ly/EL-distance. Back over to you, Angelica. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. Well, we want to start on a positive note because we're so happy that you have joined us today. We want to acknowledge the fact that during these trying times, educators are trying to do their best to try to support their students and provide them with the visual instruction. So thank you so much. We saw this picture and we thought this really hit home for us, and hopefully you like it as well. So we want to thank you at this time. And so I believe, you know, we know that teachers have been bombarded with a huge amount of links and how to support their students during distance learning. However, as we browse through those links that we have all received, I believe that there's still a void on how to support teachers of English learners. And so we understand, and we are here to support you. So we want to know, how are you doing? And what are your biggest challenges or your biggest struggles right now? And so I'm going to pass it over to Sonal so that she can walk us through this poll that we're going to be doing.
Absolutely. It's really nice and quick. It's painless, I promise you. We just want to kind of get an idea of how you're feeling this morning. So if you could try using the WebEx meetings tabs right at the top of your WebEx meeting right now, it should say you should have the option to go to edit and emoji and symbols, just as it shows on the screen. Go ahead and put in an emoji that, you know, that represents how you're feeling this morning, and then hit spacebar and it should show up in the chat window. And if you do, if you end up having issues with this, don't worry, just go ahead and just write exactly how you're feeling in text. I just thought this would be a little bit more of a fun way of doing this. Thank you. Share. So you go right to the top of your WebEx meeting window. You go to edit, emoji and symbols, and put in how you're feeling. Thank you.
I see everyone's putting on their happy faces,
parts. That is really
That's
great.
great. That's great. It's good to hear that. Okay. What do you think, Sonal? Should I continue?
Yeah,
Or you want
a couple more seconds while people share?
Okay. All right.
Okay, looks good. Thank you everyone for sharing, and please feel free to continue to share as Angelica continues. Thank you, Angelica.
You're welcome. So we've talked about so many links that we've received, and so we want to make sure that before we talk about certain strategies, that us as educators, that we ask ourselves and think what assumptions are we making about our students before we even begin to plan our lessons. And so what are we assuming about our students' learning environment? Do they have a space to work? Do they have many people in the home? What are we assuming about the access to the resources and technology? We know that there's that digital divide for our students and the access and equity. So are they accessing internet through mom's phone? We don't know. So family support also, can the parents help them out as they try to log in? So thinking about about these assumptions, asking these questions to ourselves so that we're able to really do a good job at planning and delivering our lessons now that we are doing it in a virtual platform. So we wanted to share the guidance from the CDE on ELD. We have been asked about, now that there's this change about distance learning, is ELD still required? Are students still supposed to be receiving ELD? Well, the answer is yes. This comes directly from the state, and it is the guidance that they're sharing with us. English learners are still supposed to be receiving designated and integrated English language development, as part of their educational curriculum. However, your LEA or your district can decide on how you're going to deliver the ELD services and when. And then also keep in mind that here at the end of the quote, although there are no minimum number of minutes required, ELD is a required course of study for English learners. So it is important that we think about how to provide that ELD instruction for our students. Just like our superintendent said earlier, our English learners do depend on us to make sure that we provide valuable, meaningful, deep lessons for them to learn the English language. So feel free to go read that quote, and then now I'm going to take you to the next slide. I want to start by reminding you that, and reminding ourselves that we have several resources out there put out by CDE. We have wonderful resources that we can utilize. One example that I want to start off with is the ELD standards. Because the ELD standards are so important, I want to display one example of how we can consider taking these standards and embedding them into our ELD lessons. So remember that we have the parts 1, part 2, and part 3. In part 1, for students to collaborate to produce and interpret language, as well as in part 2, where they learn about English. How does English work? And then considering as you plan your lessons that we do have the 3 proficiency levels: emerging, expanding, and bridging. And then part 3 we'll talk about the foundational skills. And I want to thank the Believe modules writers because we're borrowing this visual from them, and they do have it available for anybody who would like to use it. And so we know that other resources that we have and are able to access are the Common Core standards and the ELD standards, and we know that they work in tandem. So as you plan your lessons, Dr. Kate Kinsella has said, when you combine both standards, you are able to make sure that your students use English purposefully. We're able to make sure that our students interact in a meaningful way. And this last one is so important. We are able to make sure that students understand how English works. And by the way, we did include
Angelica, your sound went off. Your sound went off just briefly, but you should be fine. No worries.
Is it back?
Back. Keep going.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. So today, we will be sharing the 6 key considerations for English learners in instruction. We want to give to the suburban academic language model, which is the SEAL model, and to Heather Skibbins for sharing this wonderful resource. So the way this is going to work is that we're going to present key considerations, and then Sana will come in at the end of each of these considerations to talk about the best practices for online learning. So, this virtual platform, I want you to keep in mind, and I know that it's been a big change for all of us, but we can still help our students develop rich, powerful, and precise language in a distance learning model. And that is our job today. We want to do that for you. We want to show you the different platforms that you can use. We know how important it is to build our students' vocabulary. So the first one has to do with explicit focus on rich academic language. So we need to ask ourselves, what language do we want our students to have in order to engage in the learning activities that we are planning for them? So considering that it is now a virtual platform, we want to make sure that we select vocabulary that our students can learn. And then we want to focus either on content words or on tier 2 words. And as you notice the tier 2 words here, again, we have a link where you can go and you can actually see very briefly by reading Rockets, it'll take you on how you can select tier 2 words. And so we have to be strategic about choosing those vocabulary words. We need to make sure that we model the words in context. And you know what? Showing a routine in a short video for your students. For instance, doing the I do, we do, and you do. I want to go back to tier 2, and I just want that we know that the tier 2 are the words that are most helpful to our students, because those are the words that are going to help our students understand either the video, the reading, the assignments that you will give them, or even the lesson that you are teaching. So today we're going to see and hear I'm going to model a little bit on the I do, we do, you do. So pretend that we're looking at the word activist. So today we're going to see and hear the word activist in our video. The word is activist. I do, activist. We do. Say it with me, activist. Now you say it by yourself. And so you can try little routines like that with your students as you record short videos for them. So teaching all students the academic language that they need to comprehend academic texts And to write academically and to engage in classroom discussion includes teaching them the language functions related to the cognitive academic tasks that they encounter. And so here we're going to focus on the language functions because they're so important. Some of the language functions, for example, are the cause and effect that we hear all the time, students learning, the compare and contrast. Here we have the link that can take you to the language functions, and it's a document written by Seal, and this whole entire document is on language functions. So you can go there and browse and learn more about language functions. And so what I wanted to illustrate with this slide is how I took the ELD standards in part 1. I selected the 3rd standard in 6th grade, and I just thought, well, if I want my students to be able to participate and support opinions, then I can use in my virtual lessons these types of stems or sentence starters with my students, which that would be the expectation for more or less each of the levels there. And I want you to know that I did the color coding so that you know that at the emerging level, our students will need the most scaffold, and as you can see, by the time we reach the bridging, the color has faded because we release more of that scaffold. And so here is just an illustration of how I just took that standard, and it's standard number 3, part 1, and you can see that the specific language that I selected is here. So I think, I agree, and here is the other pieces. So you can start from there, and then you can build on or add as you want your students to participate in your lessons. So just making sure that that's an important piece in your lessons. So with our rich academic language, we also want to make sure and want to recommend to you that you build in images and videos in your lessons, as well as the TPR. For instance, having students signal with the thumbs up, facial expressions, pantomimes to agree or disagree, and doing the signals with their with their hands or facial expressions. We also, excuse me, we also want to encourage students to practice language with their families and siblings. This is a good time for them to practice that. And of course, making sure that you pre-teach that vocabulary to students to make sure that you increase that comprehension and the ability for them to access the content during your lessons. And very briefly, I just wanted to show you that Colorín Colorado will take you to that little link, and it'll give you examples of how you can actually teach a read aloud, and it'll take you through all of the steps that you can take. So that's a good resource for you to see on how to do that. And so I wanted to include from the Seal article that I shared earlier, some of the graphics that they have in there, but also how we can access different types of language for our academic tasks for our students. So these are some of the language functions for compare and contrast, and you can see them here on the left. And for our DLI schools, of course, Seal always includes the Spanish part, so you'll see that as well. And so now I want to invite Sonal to share the online best practice, and that would be the number 1. So I'm going to turn it over to Sonal.
Thank you, Angelica. I'm just about to share my screen. All right, so at the end of each strategy that Angelica and Rosemary share, I'm going to be sharing also an online learning best practice. And in this case, it's using screencasting to support English learners. And so if some of you are wondering, screencasting is simply a digital screen recording. You're able to record your actual screen, or you're also able to record yourself. And what that allows is that, for us to focus on the explicit focus on rich academic language. And, one example is using the TPR model that Angelica just mentioned, and also having students practice their academic language through you modeling it as an educator, and for students using that tool also. Now, I've listed several recommended resources for screencasting, and they're not the only ones out there in the world. I just want you to know that, but they are ones that I've used personally and have had success with. One of the most popular ones that is being used is Screencastify, and we are having a webinar training tomorrow on that one. So if you are interested in it, it is linked over here. But I want to just really quickly show you how Screencastify works, just so you can feel assured that it is quite a simple tool to use. So if we could just take a look over here at the top of my window, I have a little orange symbol there, a Screencastify symbol. All you need to do is download that from the Chrome Web Store. Once you have ensured that you've added that to your Chrome tabs, you can easily click on it and hit record. And I want you to see how easy it is to do that. And by the way, this is going to record my desktop. I can record in different ways. And in this case, I would need to make sure that my microphone and everything is set up first. I did reinstall this morning, which is why it gave me that screen. So I'm going to go back on this screen, go here, and it shows here that I'm embedding my webcam, because I want you to see that you can also have a video image of yourself in the right corner of this screen. So if I hit record here and click share, it looks kind of weird here right now. Okay, it's recording my screen right now. It's recording my screen with my video in the corner, because I put that I wanted to embed my video. So I could do anything at this point. I could use, hand and body gestures. I could, talk. I could show a visual. I could share something that's on the screen, and it allows for that personal interaction with your students. And so if I click here again and click stop, by the way, I could throw this away if I didn't want it. I could restart it, pause it, or any of that. So I'm going to click stop right now. And here's my video recording. And right now, because of the COVID-19 situation, Screencastify is offering a 90-day premium access, which will allow you to trim your video and crop your video also. And it's as easy as really sharing the link into, it comes from the Google Drive. You can share that link. Here's your link. You can add it to your Google Classroom. If you don't have Google Classroom and you're using a different platform, you can copy the shareable link and add it to your whatever platform you choose to do. You can also publish it to YouTube, and that allows for the closed captioning feature to appear, which is also recommended. And if if those sharing options don't appeal to you, you can also download that video. But it is a really quick and simple screencasting tool that I wanted to share with you today. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my screen. I'm going to unshare my screen so that Angelica can jump back on. Thanks, Angelica. If you have any more questions about screencasting, please do feel free to add it to chat, and I can continue to respond to those.
Okay, we're going to continue with our consideration number 2, and this has to do with the emphasis of oral language. So as a reminder, there are 5 components of oral language, and it is important for us as educators to be aware of these, since they will really drive our oral language instruction and practice with our students. So very quickly, there is the first component, which is phonology, and it has to do with the sounds of language, like chants and rhymes. The next one is morphology. That one has to do with parts of language like prefixes and suffixes. And then the vocabulary has to do with grammar. That's our third one. Vocabulary has to do with grammar, the structure of language, like when we use plurals, ed endings, past tense. And then the next one is discourse. That one takes the students to a higher level because it involves, for example, retelling a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And then the last one is pragmatics of language. And that's being able to understand and interpret when there is emphasis in a part of a phrase or a sentence. So thinking and getting our English learners to develop and engage in oral language, it is very critical. And knowing that we're gonna be doing this virtually, we will need to get creative. I will admit we will need to get creative on some ways to do this. So one of the ways is videotaping your read alouds, perhaps focusing on your fluency, your pronunciation, the intonation as you read out loud. Maybe videotaping your designated ELD mini lessons as you do your selected routines that your students are used to, and as you focus on language, modeling the think aloud, making sure students know how you are thinking so that they learn from you. And then asking comprehension questions, and don't hesitate to do this. Even if your students are not face-to-face with you, like you were in the classroom, you can still ask them those comprehension questions and allow wait time for them to respond. So when you do click on the oral language link, it will take you to a YouTube presentation on oral language, and it's put out by the Center for Applied Linguistics. Very good resource that I invite you to look at, because they talk about all the features on oral language. So the next one that I want to talk about, actually it's the same one, is the oral language. It's just a continuation. We already talked how important it is to take advantage of the chants, the songs, and play with the language with the students, specifically with our PK through second students. And I want to recommend nellyedge.com has great resources on that oral language with lots of free poems and rhymes. And you can browse through there, nellyedge.com. And then you can also teach the online, the chants online, or if the students don't have a computer, you can send home some chants and songs booklets with the students, have them also practice with their families. And the great thing about going virtually is that you're still going to be able to break your students up in small groups when you teach your designated ELD virtually. And so later on, Sonal's going to show you how to do that. Okay, so I believe I'm going to continue. I'm going to share the screen with Sonal. I'm going to stop sharing and invite Sonal to come in and do the online resources for this consideration.
Thank you, Angelica. I'm just sharing my screen. Okay, here we go. So we're right over here now. So we're talking about using online communication methods here, and I just want to share this little graphic over here about synchronous and asynchronous tools. So best practice for online learning is ensuring that we have a balance of synchronous and asynchronous communication tools. When we talk about synchronous, we're talking about same time communication, and asynchronous is not at the same time. So it would be something like an email or something that students can access and go on at their own pace. I'm not going to share too much about that part there, because Rosemary is going to do a nice little informational piece about that a little bit later on. But what I do want to emphasize here is oral language skills and how we can build on student oral language skills. One amazing resource in order to be able for you to do that is Flipgrid. Over here, I've included a Flipgrid guide, and if you click on it, you will see that it takes you to this blog, and this blog gives you all sorts of great information about how we can support English learners using Flipgrid. And it is being a little slow at the moment, so I'm going to be a little patient. And as that clicks, I do want to share with you that there is a guide for educators here too. If you are new to Flipgrid and you haven't used it before, it does look like this image right at the bottom where, students or adults record a series of different videos, and you can set the amount of minutes that you want on that, and they can respond to any task that you as a teacher requires of them. And so here's the blog I was talking about empowering English learners. I highly recommend you go through that and see how it can be used to support students. I'll go back to this one here. So I want to share with you the sample. Angelica, if you don't mind muting your right now, I think we can hear some background noise. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to click on the sample here. Here we go. And this was a quick sample I threw together just so you can see what a Flipgrid activity could look like. And it would be up to you as a teacher or professional development provider to set this up, by using that Flipgrid guide and whatnot. Here's one that I created about making predictions. So I set this for a sample 4th grade activity. And what I was able to do was build in whatever I wanted to build in. So for instance, I can add icons and tell the students exactly what I wanted them to do. This talks about making predictions. And I also included a sentence frame in there because I know that will support the students in my classroom, in particular, the English learners in my classroom. And in this case, I only have one student in my class, and that's my very own daughter, Maya. And she did record something this morning, so feel free to take a look at that. But this is what it would appear as, and your student would just respond.
I predict that Jack will have the most gold in the mine because he's determined.
She's reading by the Great Horn Spoon. So, I allowed her to record a response to that. So that's what it would look like on a Flipgrid page. I highly recommend this tool. And there's many, many, many more tools and resources out there that support online communication methods. But, the overall summary of this is that we should be using a balance of both asynchronous and synchronous resources. Thank you.
We have a question. Is Flipgrid free right now?
Absolutely. Flipgrid has always been free. I love that part about it. So Flipgrid is free, and it works really seamlessly both in the Google and Microsoft environment. Thank you. Thanks for that question. All right, over to Angelica again. Thank you. And feel free to share the PowerPoint. Somebody mentioned about sharing. Go for it.
Yes. So I just wanted to let you know that the link on this slide will take you to a 2nd grade class that will be demonstrating chanting in a dual immersion classroom. For the sake of time, we will let you go there on your own, but it is a nice example, a nice video. So we are now at consideration number 3, and that one has to do with one of the biggest, I believe is the most important one, is the language development, which has to do with our English language development, and then distributing throughout or embedding it throughout the curriculum. And so providing online instruction for English learners will be more beneficial for them if you teach in a thematic way, so thematically. So by teaching thematically, you're going to be able to help your students build knowledge. They're going to be able to learn more vocabulary and be really experts about a topic that they're learning. You're going to be able to provide time and opportunities for them to practice what they're learning. And then also students, you're going to see that students will become more engaged as you teach thematically. Let me go ahead and so as you teach virtually during perhaps maybe your reading instruction, you can assign your students to specific groups like we talked about earlier. In the link that you have there for the guided reading mini lesson, you can see an example of a teacher teaching in a small group, keeping in mind that yes, the links we're giving to you will show an actual classroom, but we want you to start thinking that whatever you did, specifically your mini lessons, your explicit instruction can still be transferred to a virtual platform. So you can also have your students work with you online, and the highlighted link here is going to take you to different graphics that perhaps you can use with your students while you teach, and it'll just kind of give you examples of maybe when they have to consider different viewpoints, or maybe when you want them to observe and describe. And as they do that and share, they can share their responses with you and with their classmates. And then also, why not? You can start beginning to build your own collection of your designated ELD mini videos. And remember, they don't have to be long, maybe a 1 to 2 minute, 2 to 3 minute long, where you do like a quick routine with them and have them practice that language or that grammar feature that you're focusing on. And then maybe you can also, perhaps if you have time, go to this link. It'll show you a designated ELD lesson on compare and contrast using those types of language functions. So right now we want to really hear from you. So how are you providing ELD instruction to your students now that we are online and virtually? So are you using videos? Are you providing them with packets, weekly assignments, and so on? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, or actually pass it over to Sonal so she can go ahead and do the Menti poll for us.
Thanks, Angelica. If you unshare your screen right now, and I did leave that Menti code in the chat window, so please feel free to access that. But I'm going to have Angelica unshare her screen, and then I'll share mine. Thank you.
Yeah, I already unshared.
It still shows as shared, so it must have frozen on there. There we go. It was just lagging a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, we got it. Okay, so we're on.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're just sharing how you're providing EL instruction to your students, and we already have one response in here. That's awesome. Providing resources to teachers from the office, and we'll continue to have some of your responses if you could participate with us. Again, you'll go to menti.com, www.menti.com, and use the code 844138. Thank you for participating. We'll give them a few moments. Give a few moments. Participating, so I'm going to refresh it in case I missed some. Oh yes, we've got a couple more coming in. I'm glad. I bet people are thinking right now about what they're doing. I'm glad that Google Classroom's on there. Both Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams seem to be the most used platforms for housing resources and providing guidelines as to what to do in the distance learning setting. I love that. Online teacher created videos. Please feel free to drop in chat what your experiences have been about using online teacher created videos. Love that lots of people are using screencasting. Again, the chat window is there for you to share some of your strategies and share some of the things that you've been doing. Angelica, do you want to comment on a couple of these before we...
Yes, some of them are also mentioning they're doing packets with supporting materials. So yeah, a variety.
I love that some people are utilizing EL tutors. Awesome.
Remember that you also have your adopted curriculum. So to use specifically the online portions of them. It's okay if you're still figuring it out. Exactly. We're all in this together, and we've heard that before. So yes.
So I'm going to move on to the next slide for time's sake, but I wanted you all to know that the linked results are very small in the corner, in the left corner of this slide. So if you want to see some ideas on what people are doing, what your peers are doing, what your colleagues are doing, please feel free to click on the linked results. Again, Menti is a really good, a free back channeling tool for you to use if anyone's interested in trying that out. All right, so I'm going to move on to best practice number 3, and we want to think about on this one using multiple means of engaging our students. And one idea for doing that is the use of hyperdocs to help with language development throughout the curriculum. So this is to help with what Angelica just talked about in that EL strategy. For those of you that have not, are not sure what a hyperdoc is, this is a really great video that you could watch. I was going to play it right now, but I'm actually not going to, again, for the sake of time. Just so you know, a hyperdoc is basically an interactive, I think of it as an interactive document with lots of interactive resources on there for students to be able to access content. For example, and it's also packaged in a really great way as well. For example, instead of just giving students a worksheet with a, fill the missing gap, we can include video resources in there. We can include, slide presentations and also infographics within our hyperdocs. You're probably wondering, let me see what one looks like. Well, I'm just going to show you where they are housed for you to be able to easily create your own hyperdoc. So under this website, and by the way, this was created by 3 amazing individuals and educators from Northern California. There's a little picture of them here. I go to resources and go to templates. And here's a bunch of templates that can be used to design a hyperdoc. And hyperdocs look like these documents right here. Some people like to design hyperdocs within slides also. I'm going to give you the very basic hyperdoc template that a lot of people like to use. And, fear not, you don't have to recreate this from scratch. You can make a copy of this exact document by going File, Make a Copy. Before I do that, I want you to know that you can also download it as a Microsoft Word document if you are a Microsoft user. So I'm going to go to Make a Copy myself. And this is just a really great way to design lesson experiences for your students. And it really goes through some, backward planning lesson ideas here, where you think about how we can truly engage our students by inserting videos or quotes inside here. You can eliminate this whole thing and put a video here. So imagine there's a video here for students to watch. And then we've got Explore here. And what this allows you to do, this section, you could, and by the way, you don't have to call it Explore. It's just what's on this basic template. And within here, this allows you an opportunity to ensure that your students are engaged in the curriculum, in anything that they're accessing, in terms of their remote learning experiences in different ways. So this is where you can add articles, videos, infographics, and text in order for your students to access material in a variety of different ways. And, and that. And so we've got here a way for teachers to explain content. And then over here, we've got apply, share, and reflect. And you can take this out and add whatever you want to add in there. And that could be a graphic organizer. It could be an infographic. Listed on this slide, I have a couple of resources for you to be able to use at your own time. One includes a bunch of graphic organizers created by Matt Miller that you could make a copy of and include in your hyperdocs for learning experiences. And here I included my very favorite infographic tool. It's not the only one out there, but Canva is a really great tool to use to create posters. Infographics are basically just posters that include a really great visually enticing image and pictures on there. And you can create that very easily within Canva, which is, again, a free resource. I'm going back to this just for one more moment because I want you to see that there are so many templates you can use and copy for yourself, but there's also samples of lesson plans that have been done all over the place that are also shared by many, many different educators for you to be able to access for different subject areas and, different extracurricular activities. So feel free to check those out. I wish I could go into more detail about HyperDocs today, but it could be, you know, a whole day session, to be honest with you. And we are providing another webinar next Tuesday, and I'll show you how to access our upcoming webinars later. But that webinar will go over in a little bit more detail how to use HyperDocs. That webinar is about online learning and engaging students in the online learning experience. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I'm going to pass it back over to Angelica. Thanks, Angelica.
Thank you, Sonal. And now we're going to Rosemary. She's going to cover the last 3 considerations.
Rosemary. And then as Rosemary starts to share her screen, if you have any questions, again, please use the chat window. I would be happy to answer them. It's, you know, I really would like to make sure that you have everything you need.
All right, just make sure everyone can see my screen here. Good morning, everyone.
We can see it, Rosemary. Thank you.
Okay, great. Since I'm coming on right now. What an exciting time now. So our 4th consideration is that e-English learners require specific, specially designed instruction and support in order to access, comprehend, and participate effectively in school. So the 4th consideration also reminds us that students need concrete strategies in accessing and processing content, and that designated time still should be provided. So remember to continue to provide differentiated sentence frames to support them in constructing increasingly complex sentences that they'll be receiving throughout this distance learning time. The link on the slide is just one of several resources that provide sample sentence frames. Dr. Kate Kinsella also has a using sentence. And please feel free to share with us in the chat box if there are samples that you're currently using that we can share with others. And for the sake of time, the links are live. You see the bit.ly on the bottom here. Please feel free to review at your own time. When we're thinking about having to be specific and specially designing instruction to access and comprehend content, remember that the use of models such as SIOP for lesson design and delivery, they're still very relevant. The comprehensible input component of SIOP that includes examples of language accommodation techniques such as the ones listed on the slide. Teachers can explicitly explain at the student's proficiency level the academic tasks that they expect students to perform orally and in writing, with demonstrations, modeling of tasks, and sample products. The link for SIOP on this slide provides more in-depth details on all the components of SIOP. So teachers using the SIOP model realize that English learners acquire new language differently than majority language speakers. And their instruction includes a variety of techniques so students can comprehend lesson key concepts. And our next slide here. So if you are still sending packets home or providing instruction online, remember the benefits of using graphic or them in accessing and processing content. And please be strategic in the type of graphic organizers you will select according to the content and the task. The link from SEAL, the one Angelica shared earlier on the slide, it's the same one. It provides you with more examples. The one she's language function, it also shares this graphic that you see here, as well as the graphic. And the link from SEAL is very thorough with all the benefits that it provides for students. So on this slide, it is a small group video. This one I did want to share. So remember that to provide English learners with some small group support, this could be used to front load students with vocabulary or concepts or respond to their specific needs in tackling distance learning tasks. And consider using breakout groups to create heterogeneous groups in which you can spend designated virtual time to support English learner students in additional supports and scaffolds. So let's take a look at this video, which shows a kindergarten teacher small group lesson.
Do you see me now? And the screen? Yes. Great. All right. So I'm going to explain some things and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. Give me a thumbs up that you're ready to start. Good listening. Ready to start. So learning online is a little bit different in the classroom. So we're going to look at some things that are going to help us learn together on the computer. Okay. So this says our schedule. That means Miss Valentina, Lucine, Anna, and Sydney. That's what our means. This is our schedule for learning today. So thumbs up that you see these little boxes. My mouse is pointing. Yeah, these little boxes have pictures for different activities we're doing together today. So first we're going to do together, then we're going to look at letters, then we're going to do some reading of words, then we get to go together. We're going to do some high frequency follow directions. The first.
I'm just going to forward it through a little. You can see that she goes through her lesson.
Many sounds. 3. Show me. Don't tell me. Show me with your fingers. Good. I see you all showing me 3. So let's see if we're right. Thank you for showing.
So if you have teachers hesitant about conducting small groups like this,
good job.
You see how they're
Nice
scheduled,
job.
and this might put them at ease.
For today.
I'm going to stop it right there. Hopefully it won't come back on. And on the bottom here, so again, wasn't that awesome? I wish I could hear some feedback. I can't see the chat box right now, but I thought that was amazing. It's 30 minutes of the full lesson that you have access to. And you can show it to the ones, again, it is a new learning curve for a lot of people. And it made me relax as well, seeing those students and the teacher interacting, and that it is possible. And then the additional link on the bottom here with designated ELD lesson, it is in the classroom, but we just want you to remember to use those components of designated ELD when planning. And here on this slide, wanted to take a look at the 2 types of cyber learning environments that Sonald had mentioned earlier. According to Dr. Krimmel, the founder of College ESL, these are the advantages and disadvantages to synchronous and asynchronous instruction, which is beautifully laid out on this table. So please take a moment to review on your own. Dr. Krimmel states that asynchronous lacks variations in human interaction that allow for language acquisition through negotiated meaning and social cues. Synchronous lacks the time for ELs to process receptive input and need language or a new language. So it's recommended that the quality to conversion to English EL instruction requires a balance of both. So to that end, the program cannot only be asynchronous, which is read and write tasks, nor is it an effective instruction program to have only live synchronous lessons with little opportunity to develop those literacy skills. The balance of how each type rests on our understanding of second language acquisition research. So emerging ELs need more comprehensible input through physical modeling and visuals, the TPR activities and live synchronous lessons, as well as through asynchronous lesson tasks provided in this learning opportunity. So while the bridging level can comprehend content better, they still need that oral language practice. So the recommendation is that you plan for your program or lessons according to your EL proficiency levels. And fortunately, this is an advantage for us with our distance learning model. We have have the gift of time and no need to worry about the in-classroom management to schedule those uninterrupted designated time for our students that require these additional supports. I think I'm turning it over to Sonal right now.
Yes, thanks, Rosemary. If you unshare your screen, I'll share mine again. Yeah. Right. So this best practice that I'm going to be talking about now is small group instruction online. I have my daughter again in the corner right there, by the way. But we're talking about using the best web conference platforms that we can possibly use, you know, well, or whichever platform you're using, and considering certain things such as, does that platform allow for breakout rooms like Zoom does? Do you have a schedule for when you are going to have that web conference, or do you have, like, you know, a specific a set day that you're going to be doing those? And how much time is available for you to have your small group instructional moments online? And of course, with this comes how much access do our students have to the technology and so forth. So this is specifically about, you know, how do we still ensure that students get the designated instruction to access and be able to comprehend the content? There's some resources here that I wanted to share with you, just so you know that it definitely can be done. I myself am taking classes right now, and I am using Zoom breakout rooms, and I think it's really powerful to ensure collaboration with small groups. And you know, it's just something you might consider using. Another thing I thought I would share with you is this Google Meet schedule sample, whereby a teacher I know ended up just creating groups to meet with each day or each week. And she put times of when those students come. So students in group 1 would come from 9 to 9:30, depending on what level they're at. And their supporting materials are here also. So they'd come at their recommended times, and their materials are here to access. And then they would upload this into their Google Classroom. And from Google Classroom, they're able to see that easily. And if those of you that are familiar with Google Classroom, if you look at the assignment feature, well, in the classwork feature, there's a section where you can upload material. This is a good place to upload material like that. There's also a video here that I wish I could share with you right now, but because of time, I just linked it in here. Please feel free to check out the video for Microsoft Teams if that's the platform that you use. And then this is a wonderful tutorial, again, by Matt Miller, on using Google Classroom to differentiate and, you know, group students, you know, effectively. So do take a moment to check that out. But again, small group instruction can definitely happen in the online setting as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it back over to Angelica.
I'm going to take over Sonal still. Right.
And it looks like some of our participants want a shared link folder. So we have provided the link for the shared folder, where we will keep all of our resources. All of your ideas can go in there.
Thank you. Rosemary, are you sharing your slide right now? I don't see it. Okay, there it is. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So our 5th consideration is supporting the development of home language into English is critical because it contributes to the growth in both English and the child's home language, and it accrues lifelong benefits to the child. So this distance learning has provided us with a unique opportunity to deepen and capitalize on students' language use of their home language. Duolingo teachers can connect to numerous websites like these Facebook groups. The link is there. Not sure if sometimes it comes on and sometimes it doesn't. Oh, there it is. So you can see here the dual language online learning. There are a wealth of resources on here. And the list of resources here, it takes you to a page where it just lists resources and resources to support bilingual instruction. And I'm sure people have been Googling everything since this model started for us. We also, and finally, please remember to incorporate culturally responsive lessons. In this link here, it does, let's see. It is. And if you go to this site and under remote learning, it also takes you to, when you click on that, it takes you to a lot of resources and guidance on culturally responsive, sustaining remote education. It's a document that you can download, share it. It's right there and it's free. And it also has lots of stories and it's a great website that Seal had shared. And I think I'll here just for the sake of time.
Thank you, Rosemary. If you stop sharing, and I'll just quickly share my screen here.
Sure.
Thank you. Go. I still see your screen on there, but I'm going to give this a shot. All right, so we're on this one here. Not this one. I jumped too far ahead. Okay, so Angelica just shared, sorry, Rosemary just shared this, and I just wanted to just, share with you that, we won't be able to go through all these resources here today, but we did just have a question about, do we have resources for families? So this is a perfect time to address that. Yes, absolutely. In fact, on our SBCSS Remote Learning Resources Hub that is linked here, I thought it was linked here. Let me see. It's not linked here. I'll make sure it's linked. You are able to go to sbcss.k12.us. I'll show you the easiest way to get there. Then distance learning, and then remote learning resources hub. You're not expected to remember that. I'll make sure it's linked in that slide. But you can go from here to family resources. And in family resources, there's so many different resources and resource ideas for families to use with their children in order to be able to, continue home language learning. I think that these are really some great ones that we provided. There's also many more from Imperial County Office of Education. So I strongly advise that you also check those resources out too. But yes, absolutely. There's also wideopenschools.org provided by Common Sense Media. Do check that one out as well. That one is very user-friendly and shows you, some additional resources to use in order to support home language learning, as well as this video here is really a great video that guides you through how to use Google Translate to translate anything that is web-based. It's really a simple thing to use, and I wanted to actually just show you how to use Google Translate, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to say this video tells you all very clearly how to translate a web page into a language of a person's choice. All right, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing this one now and pass it over to Rosemary to share the very last EL strategy. Thank you. Right, so we'll have.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're getting great questions. I'm trying to respond to them as we go, but we can always stick around after to answer your questions as well.
Yeah, I think Rosemary, your slide is still loading. As that loads, I just wanted to remind you, because I might not have time to say it at the end, but we do definitely have the upcoming webinars linked in the very last slide, as well as the resource hub I just showed you, and many other different resources for you to continue the learning today. There we go. We see your slide now, and Rosemary, go for it. Rosemary, if you're talking, we can't hear you right now. You might have forgotten to unmute yourself. There you are.
Right. Okay, so let me try and share again.
No problem. Thank you, Angelica, for providing that folder. I think it's great that people want to share some of their really great ideas in there.
Yeah, at this time, we do have the PowerPoint for the oral language from the linguistics, applied linguistics. Okay, go ahead, Rosemary.
Oh, it's okay. I know this is it's fun stuff for trying the sharing of the screen. So, and I know teachers will be going through this with their students very soon, or you're already dealing with it now. But again, both the considerations 5 and 6 focuses a lot on home language. And just a reminder that the fact that we remember to treat the students' home language as an asset, as we did in the classroom. So, and this brings us to our 6th and final consideration, which focuses on continuing to build strong home and school relationships. And this is more important than ever right now. Between home and school are the cornerstones of powerful education for our English learner children. So please share now in the chat box if you have found something effective to help support our families with distance learning and or online practices. I know things are developing daily. We need to help families find simple, meaningful ways to connect with their children's academic learning and support their social, emotional health. On bullets here, just providing families with multilingual prompts for conversations, creating those open-ended assignments where children can express what they're experiencing during this challenging time. And we talked a little bit about Google Translate, and then I think Sonal has some more information for you. And link here on this bottom with the remind families that one of the most important things that they can do to support their children's academic learning is to engage them in conversations in their home language, keeping the oral both in English and in their home language. To Sonal.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Give me one moment. And here we go. So we're on best practice number 6, and that's really about how we can remove barriers for families with use of communication tools. And some of the things that we really want to consider when we're doing this is, does the solution that you have provide two-way communication? Because we also want families to be able to communicate with us also. Does it have translation features available? Is the platform easy and intuitive by design for parents and families to access? And are you able to streamline your tools in there so that it doesn't become too overwhelming for our parents and families? And, again, this is to continue to build a strong home and school relationship. The resources that I have linked into here includes one really great article about how to use Talking Points, which is just one platform of the many that are out there. Talking Points allows for that text communication with parents. And, if an educator was to send something, the parent is able to say what language they want that communication to be sent in. And then and the family can also communicate back in their own home language. And the person receiving the communication, such as the teacher, will then be able to get that translated into English. So I think it's a really great communication tool. You may have one that you're using consistently within your district that you prefer to use. Over here, there's a Google Classroom Spanish parent tutorial that I thought it was really good to share, because that's another way that parents can stay in tune with what remote learning activities are being provided by their children's teacher. And there's also a Microsoft Teams tutorial as well there. And that tutorial could also be the subtitles on YouTube could be changed into the parent's own language so that they can view this video also. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide right now. And this slide really is about the 10 remote learning practices that we might want to shy away from. And Angelica mentioned at the beginning that the solution to this is not piling on too much work. We want to make sure that these, we really think about access and opportunities for our students and what we're able to do in this online setting. I mean, it can be, I know there's a lot of, stigma associated with online learning right now, but there's also all the positive that's associated with it. The amount of interaction we can, have online, the the numerous, multimedia options we can provide our students, as well as, different and engaging curriculum online. And Helika, do you want to add anything to this before I move to the next slide? No, we're running out of time here.
Well, I just want to chime in on what you said, affirm what you said. Number one, about the piling too much work, or even teachers worrying about delivering a lesson from beginning to end. I know we had a question about, what about secondary? The lessons are going to take longer. Remember that we're not live face-to-face to the students, so you're going to have to make adjustments and maybe chunk the instruction for the students and do them in small pieces. So maybe recording small little videos for the students, and then just keep going as you go throughout the week. So making adjustments.
Thank you. Rosemary, did you want to add anything to this?
Yes, I saw that too, about 150 students of secondary level. True, you're pacing yourself differently. So like number 7 says, forcing teachers to follow a traditional schedule while they're working remotely. It's not, students aren't sitting there for 6 hours looking at the teacher. So you are able to schedule. One of the districts that my niece attends, she hasn't met with the teacher yet, but she has a scheduled time on Wednesday and Friday for 30 minutes or an hour, differentiated. So you're not sitting there face to face with your students for 6 hours. So it does give you that flexible time to chunk those schedules and meet with those small groups. And because a lot of the assignments are going through Google Classroom, and those who need extra instruction are given that in a scheduled time. So remembering that our mindset has to change with that 6 hours you're facing your students, where you are able to schedule and give assignments on Google Classroom without being face-to-face, so you can have those additional times.
Yeah, I also just want to end this slide with, this is a great opportunity also to give that feedback to the students. You can do it directly, and it's very easy to do. So want to hone in on that, the feedback.
And Helika, I'm going to have you share this slide real quick, please, as well.
Yeah, so, we're so excited about learning from you. We've been looking at the chat, and you've been mentioning many ideas and many actions that have been taken already at your districts. And so we're seeking exemplary, maybe not like perfect, but, we want to see great things. Think of it as a bright spot in our county. Any of the districts that are feeling successful as they implement a plan for ELD instruction. We would like to hear from you, because we would like to also feature you in one of our future webinars. And so email us or stay later on to chat, and we will talk to you and make more plans for the future. So think about that.
Everyone had a lot to share as well, judging by the chat.
Yes.
So please do.
Yes, we would love to feature your LEA.
Thank you. And here's some additional resources that are there and available for you. There are many different things that are shared here, and here's our contact information. Please feel free to contact us at any time. And again, thank you so much for being here today. I know Angelica wanted to say a couple of words about the feedback.
Yes, the bit.ly link, the first one, will take you to an online survey, and we really would like to hear from you. We look at these, and based on what we see and see any requests from you, we move forward to making sure that we meet the needs that you are asking, the requests that you are asking and wanting to see from us. So we also remember that we are here to serve you and our students. That's our job. So keep connecting with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Give us that feedback.
Yeah, and the feedback that we've had in the past was what helped us to form this webinar. So that's really absolutely important. We've also got some upcoming webinars, as I mentioned earlier. Please feel free to click there. And then the SBCSS webinars and trainings portal will house this webinar when this webinar has been uploaded. So, that's where you can find the slide deck and the webinars. You'll also have it emailed to you today through OMS, along with this feedback form. And the slide links for today's presentation are also linked here today. Again, we're going to stick around until about 11:30 for any questions that you have. But thank you again for being here. Rosemary, any final words?
No, this is exciting times. I'd say I'm just always, at that mindset, like, okay, what's coming up next? And I did see in the chat, I think it was Crystal who said that she's already recorded for small groups and put it in her Google Classroom. So we are looking for you guys to share with us all these awesome things so that we can get it out to the rest of our county districts that are all, there's 30.
And you know what? Yes, Rosemary, I just wanted to add that not only do we want to highlight our districts here in our county, but we also would like to share it with CED. So we don't think of it as, oh my gosh, but we want to encourage you to, we know you're doing great things, so why not share? Thank you for being here.
I just shared the feedback link in chat.
We'll stick around for any more questions. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The link in the chat window right now. I love all the sharing. Wow. And Crystal, if you could add that
Math and science.
that would be amazing. Let us know what you would like to see.
It looks like in other areas as well.
Okay, see math and science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have Denise